the Fanatec Clubsport Shifter V1.5. Now if you're more of a sim driver than a sim racer and you enjoy sampling a wide variety of cars on offer in games like Assetto Corsa, then this is a device of interest to you. The combination of a pretty decent mechanical shifting action as well as a super easy switch from normal to sequential puts drivers like you at the centre of this shifter's target audience. I did have issues with my unit early on which are now fixed and worth mentioning, so I'll cover that briefly as well. Now I bought this shifter with my own pennies. That doesn't imply my words mean more than anyone else's, just stating it for the record. Check the links in the description if you head over to the Fanatec shop following this video. Giving a click supports this channel in real tangible ways, and thank you to those who have done so in the past, you are much appreciated. So first, let me touch on the issue I had as it's been fixed in an update, but if you didn't get the memo then it's pretty easy to miss, and I only knew about it because someone pointed it out to me. All the way up until February this year, there was a peculiar issue whereby my shifter would not calibrate or work correctly if connected to my CSL DD wheelbase whilst mounted to my rig. In other words, everything as intended. To get around it in the past, I had to use a Fanatec USB adapter to bypass the wheelbase altogether. Not ideal. This issue, however, is reported as fixed in the Fanatec driver update in February this year, and I can confirm it worked for me as well. So if you have a CSL DD or GT-DD Pro, an aluminium rig and one of these shifters and you also have this issue, update your Fanatec drivers and then the firmwares and it should be sorted. That said, on we go. As I'll discuss shortly, the big selling point of the Clubsport Shifter is its ability to cover two distinct shifting types in one box. The construction of that box is almost entirely metal. There's no flimsiness visible and it cuts a nice looking unit thanks to the black coating up and down the casing. The Fanatec logo and gear markers on the top plate are a decent touch, and I can't think of a way that I would have preferred this to be. All in all, it's a nice looking thing. In general usage, this thing is great. It's got enough resistance and throw to get your arms properly moving and do justice to the sort of cars for which you would want a shifter to enjoy. Pushing that lever into each gear when you're driving something like a classic Porsche 911 or a retro F1 car really helps dig up that feeling you hope to have when you see such cars and imagine what it might be like driving them. That's what simulations like Assetto Corsa and the likes are really good for. They're an imagination tool for those that see videos of old race cars and want to jump right into the screen. But that's not going to happen if all you have is clicky paddles on your wheel. You need a shifter to make it believable, and the better your shifter, the stronger that effect. And I'm satisfied with the Clubsport Shifter in that respect. When you're changing gears, there's a distinct pressure gate that you have to push through, fairly close to the meshing action you might feel in a typical manual road car. The amount of resistance and notchiness is adjustable to a fairly wide degree by turning the Allen bolt in the side of the main casing to dial it up or down. You can make the shifting action pretty loose, practically falling into gear when the wind gusts a bit, or you can make it fairly chunky, requiring a comparatively heavy intent to get it into gear. This is a really handy feature because there are times when a heavy gearbox is more faithful to the car you're driving, and times when a light shift is more appropriate. Ergonomically speaking, this is one thing that I think could be vastly improved by just having a permanent twist knob there so that you didn't have to reach for your Allen key whenever you felt like changing it, but that's just icing on the cake. The biggest trick this shifter has, which I haven't seen on any other since the Logitech G25, is a super easy switch from manual mode to sequential mode requiring no time and no tools. This is a big deal as it means you can gallivant across the entire roster of cars in your favourite sim at will, freeing you up to just drive whatever you fancy. If you're driving a manual vehicle 1 minute and a sequential vehicle the next, this vital feature makes it pretty painless. The tension adjustment mentioned earlier also takes effect here, so you can have a hefty click up and down or a light click up and down, you choose. In the box you get two different gear knob types included. One that's sphere shaped and one that's a bit taller. Both are substantial in weight, and it's good that they give you a choice of two to highlight that customization is encouraged. As the lever is threaded at the top with standard threading, you don't have to stick with the supplied gear knobs if you don't want to. Fanatec sells carbon versions of the standard items, but you can have near enough any automotive grade topping. I bought this one off Amazon, which came with a range of thread adapters, one of which fit perfectly, and I was away. The shifter itself is built heavily enough to be a match for anything automotive grade. It doesn't feel like you're putting a higher grade item on a lower grade toy. It suits it well. As I said at the beginning, sometimes you just want to sim drive rather than sim race, and that's when you reach for the manual and sequential cars that give you something a bit more than just point and go paddle shifting. For that purpose, this has covered everything just fine for me, and now that the latest firmware has rectified that original issue connecting it to my CSL DD wheelbase, there's no bone to be picked with it anymore. It's a jack of all trades, and in some cases other units can do things better. For example, if you just wanted a sequential shifter and that's it, then there are units that I've seen that are clearly more satisfying to use but cost a fair bit by themselves. And if you just want a manual box, then there are alternatives that cost a lot less but can't do both. This works well as a competent right hand man that covers everything to a good degree, or left hand man, depending on which side you mount it. I judge things by whether or not they feel like they give you your money's worth, and for me I'd say this does pass that test. And when I'm finally sick of all this sim racing stuff, I can just use this as a doorstop. And that's it for the time being. Let me know if you've already got one of these and your experiences, as it's always super helpful to those that follow. Check the description for more information and feel free to ask me any questions whatsoever. I'll be happy to respond. Click like and subscribe if you appreciate my opinion, and if you didn't. Cheers.